best way I can to provide what inspiration those who are listening can find in it. I think one, it does help to marry the right person. So my wife of over 5 years, but we've been together over 10 years. She's watched me, you know, evolve and mature over the years. Obviously, when she started dating me, I was a young person that still enjoyed being young and having fun. But she saw something in me
Mhm.
and got behind me. And that I had that support system that allowed me to accomplish some of the goals that you've even watched me accomplish in terms of starting my law practice and starting other businesses and then being able to join some of these boards and things that I'm doing now. But I owe it all to her. I don't owe it all to her, but I owe a lot of that to her because like I said, a lot
Yes,
goes to
yes,
obviously
yes.
God and family. But yeah, she gives me that opportunity. Like she's at home right now with the kids while I'm in the office reading over contracts and other obligations that I have. And so that's one. It's like finding that right person. It doesn't necessarily have to be a spouse. It
Mhm.
could be a friend. It can be a family member. It can be a business partner. But you have to have that right person that believes in you, supporting you constantly. And if you don't, then you have to find you need to find somebody else and get maybe remove some of the baggage
Yeah.
that may not be filling that capacity, and also you have to have purpose, right? So if you look at everything that you spoke about, and I tell people when they look at my LinkedIn or they read my bio, it's like it's not hard for me because everything's based on my purpose and my passion. So I'm not all over the place
Mhm.
trying to do something that is not in my wheels. Like everything's about fairness and equity. That's if you really look at. I'm on the board
Oh,
for
yeah.
teen health. It's about making
Mhm.
sure that young women who may not have the resources to take care of their family have those resources. If you look at the League of Women Voters, it's about making sure people have voting rights and equal access to government. And then obviously the work we do at the Urban League, economic parity, and 100 Black Men, and Lone Star Just Lines, and everything, the Diversity
Mhm.
Fund Houston, Alabama, they all come down to making sure that we remove those obstacles that historically underutilized communities have always faced. Obviously, starting with my own and the Black community, but every community. And so, as an attorney and everything else I'm doing, it really lines up. And then, as far as the running and exercising and anything else extracurricular, that's what I use to decompress. I mean, it's running is when I go out to do
Mhm.
my best thinking, and I'm out there. And I was telling you before we hopped on that that's when I'm listening to audible, audible books and podcasts because it's just my time to be out there alone to decompress, and then going home with the family, and then we suit back up. But it's no different than you and all the work you're doing. And I know you have your own secret formula, but that's mine. It's family and it's running, and then it's doing
Mhm.
what I truly feel is a problem in this world. And it's like that's my contribution is to try to keep keep on at it until we find a solution where it's fairness and equity for everybody, despite where they look like, where they live, where they come from, what family they're born into. I think we should all have an equal opportunity.
Wow. And thank you for explaining that seamlessly because when you look at your walk and your growth and your development, you do see all of the things that you spoke of that are a part of one another. The equity that you're fighting for people, the resources that you're providing, the empowerment as a result of those family members being able to connect with you through your work, the leadership, which is the larger umbrella that everything falls under, the economic structure, and everything runs through economics. It's really important for us to understand that and to focus on that. And you actually play a tremendous role as an urban leaguer, and I don't know how much you can share with us as it relates to your role there specifically, but when I think of economics here in Houston, I think of the Houston Area Urban League. When I think of family resources, I think of the Houston Area Urban League. They do so much over there, but I have seen you take that the small business side of the equation and just shot up like a beautiful bamboo tree in the fifth year. And I mean, it is just flowing, overflowing with resources, with you all empowering small businesses, out there making videos with, the constituents and their small businesses to see how they're thriving. I just can't even put into words when I hear people talking about to hear them talking about, how excited they are with getting their business plans together and preparing to come over to see you. Because I actually visited right before, and I'm so glad I had a chance to go. I said, let me go on over there. I got an email. I do get emails from you. I get emails from Mr. Judson Robinson. I said, let me go over here and support my community and see what's going on over there. The room was packed with small business owners, whether they were startups or not, with people who were just excited about being in the room, being educated, and having having the ability to network with
Mm-hmm.
people who were visionaries. It's a beautiful thing when you're in the room like that. So what are some things that you're doing as, as I like to use the term urban leaguer, what, and you're, much more than that from the leadership perspective, but that's just a term that I use since my times back in the day of being a part of the young urban leaguers. I like to use that term. And I want my audience to also know, because I would be remiss if I didn't say this. The Houston Area Urban League is the nation's oldest and largest community based movement devoted to empowering African Americans to enter the economic and social mainstream. It's really important that you understand that they help to support and to fight for anybody as it relates to equity. It's for all. They support every and any one. But we do understand as it relates to our social construct and where we were as a nation, we didn't always have fair practices into place. And so there were people at the front lines fighting to ensure that African Americans were included in fair housing, that we were included in a part of our nation's governmental structure and all those things. But it's been around for years, since 1910 on the national level, and then here in Houston since the 60s. And they just always do a fabulous job. But when I think of economics in the small business development component, I think of Phillip Yates. Okay. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing over there? Because it is just growing tremendously under your leadership.
No, again, spot on with the introduction of the Urban League and the importance of that organization as a pillar in our community. Now, I love the way you explained it, and if, for any of your listeners that want to learn more about some of the disparities and social injustices that's transpired in this country, I recommend two books that I find fascinating from a research or legal perspective. One is The Color of Money. Repeat, that's The Color of Money, and the second one is The Color of Law. And between those two books, they will take you down history of the United States of America and the unfair treatment of the African American community and why it's so important to support your urban leagues and your NAACPs and other community and economic development organizations that help to bring parity. But to answer your question, right? So, one, I would definitely be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Judson and Eric Goody. Both of them have become mentors to
Yes.
me. I mean, they're family now, and they've been mentors since I was young.
Yeah.
Um, and I really love the way that relationship has grown. And so, under their leadership, they empowered me to become a leader by way of just letting me, just let me have the reins and saying, okay, we believe in you, young man, and go out there and do something special. And the first conversation, and I brought this up with Eric when we were on another, you know, was another podcast. I remember, and Eric, I don't know if you remembered, but when I first came to him, my dad was on the board, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do to have my impact on the world. And I was in his office. He looked at my resume and he said, "Wow, okay, you already have an MBA. You already have some work experience in corporate America, and I see you own the business." And he said, "Well, just create a business program based on what you would like to see." And the funny thing is, at that
Mm-hmm.
time, I had an insurance agent for a few years and had some great successes, but I did it on my own. Right, I looked at my old business books
Mm.
and then I looked at the resources I had and I didn't ask anybody for help or didn't know who to ask for help. At this point in time, like I said, a lot of my work was in A Leaf, and then before that, I spent like a 6 years in Nacogdoches, where I went to school and played basketball and did my undergrad and graduate school.
Yep,
Uh,
SFA.
that's Axum Jackson. So I had good success, but I didn't know a lot. I just didn't know because I didn't know what entrepreneurship really was. I didn't know what being a business owner really meant. I knew what the administration of business was, but not being a business owner. And so that's what Small Business Development University was born, and that was over 10 years ago. Where I just said, okay, let's put together some PowerPoints. Let's come up with all these subjects. But what was really important was to bring people from the community that had mastered different disciplines or subject matter areas and have them come in and train the people in their own community. And so at the beginning, people say, "Oh, well, how much you paying?" And you pay me this, and I was like, "Well, you're not the right person if you feel like
Mm-hmm.
you have to be paid to give back to your own community." And so I made that was important to me from day one. It
Mm,
had to be somebody who aligned with the focus and the mission of the Houston Area Urban League and the National Urban
mm.
League and the movement that you just so eloquently explain to your listeners. And it started happening. People, you had attorneys and marketers and computer scientists, engineers, and other leaders started coming back,
Yes.
and they would teach the program. And it would, over time, it started changing because the people who were in the program in the early stages now became business owners, and then they came back and they would teach the program and also be mentors. So we started this virtuous cycle, and then it just had a multiplier effect where it was the one program, and it still is, in my opinion, it doesn't have qualifiers. I don't feel like you should have to qualify to have economic opportunity. And so that means that, you shouldn't have to have
Mm,
been in business X amount of years. You shouldn't have to have made enough money. You shouldn't have to go through some curriculum and take some tests like that. Not for our community. Not for when if you understand the movement of the urban league. Not if you read those books and understand the de facto
mm,
laws that were discriminatory practices that kept us back from being able to achieve certain goals. So like, who are we going to learn from? So if we continue to have these barriers, how can we move
mm.
forward? And that's what I'm most proud of from the work I was able to do with the Urban League, is that we created this where it cast a wide net. We were able to get people in there no matter what stages they are, whether in the pre-venture dreaming phase or the early stage of startups. And it's like, we're going to just give you the tools and resources so that you can grow, and then we'll feed you into a pipeline where you can go on to another program or get certified and ultimately go out there and do business. And up to date, I want to say it's probably over 10,000 business owners or participants, I'll say, have went through the program, successfully
Yes.
graduated, been able to pitch competitions where we probably awarded up to, I want to say, $200,000 at this date. And there's been a lot of great people that we recognize around the city. I know one of them, Deidre Mathis. She just opened up her second hostel, which she was the first African American, first or second African American to own a hostel in the United States. You have people like Michelle Levi, who she's now in the building. She's a CPA accounting,
Mm-hmm.
operating some major contracts with the city, the county, and even in some other municipalities across the country. You have Kylie Summers and Tiffany Williams, who I partnered up with to start a venture capital fund to help other Black and Brown technology founders get friends and family around capital, so seed capital. And they're both technology founders, have their own business. I mean, Tiffany Williams just won the National Business Asian National Small Business Development um, organization entrepreneur of the year. So a lot of success stories,
Mm-hmm.
people you're proud of, that that program that the Urban League has was able to give them economic mobility, whether it was some capital, whether it was human capital, whether it was meeting a board member or another one of those change agents that we have here in Houston. I just feel like the Urban League provides a home for people who may not else otherwise have a place to go. And so, yeah, very, very excited about what's to come from them. And I'll just continue to do what they asked me to do. So when you say, "What's my role over there?" Is it's duties as assigned. I'm obviously a consultant now. I'm not I'm not a full time employee anymore because I have my own practice. But if Uncle Judson or Uncle or her big brother Eric call me up today, I'll do whatever they ask me because I know where it's going.
Yes, and my experience of Judson and Eric, they are just two magnificent men who are in our city, who their arms are just always consistently open wide. I tell you, I just ran into a young man on Clubhouse actually, and we were talking and discussing some business practices. And he said, "Yeah, I'm looking forward to," because I referred him to the Urban League. And he said, "Yeah, I'm already connected. I grew up with Eric Goody." I said, "Oh, okay, then you don't need my help." I said, "You don't need my help if you got Mister Connect over there." And
Yes.
just my experience with Justin when I was in a position to donate tickets to the women in our city who are less fortunate. I knew to reach out to Judson, and he was so very supportive. I was able to get them some tickets, to see Dr. Maya Angelou when I had an opportunity to work with her here in Houston. That was just an amazing experience for many of them. And I knew to reach out to the Urban League because they would get the resources to the women who needed to attend. So they're always just amazing. And we thank Justin, we thank Eric for everything that they're doing. And Tiffany, by the way, I plan on trying to connect with her actually next month for that's March is Women Empowerment Month, women making
Hmm.
history. So I definitely want to connect with her on that. I'm gonna reach out to her for that. Always doing an amazing job in the community. And actually, I referred her and recommended her for her STEM Bridges Houston Award because Dr. J was looking for someone who was, in tech, but was in a position to empower the community, who was a hard worker, focused in their business, on a large and small scale in that manner. And so I knew to contact Tiffany and say, "Hey, why don't you come on out? And we want to honor you for all the work that you do here in Houston." And Dr. J was very excited about meeting her and very pleased, with my choice of individual for that particular award. So excited, good stuff. Y'all got good stuff going on. Now tell us about Philip. What's the difference between the Diversity Fund of Houston and Equal Liberty Incorporated? Now, because when I look at Diversity Fund of Houston, that's you're the co-founder there, and then with Equal Liberty Incorporated, you're building. So, can you tell us a little? You've already touched bases on, I would say, Equal Liberty, but I just want people to get a distinct difference between the two.
Oh, I get that a lot, right? So, obviously, during my date, but
Because you're moving around, so I want yeah.
but no, yeah, because my day job is being an attorney. I always tell people, but at night I'm Batman, and I'm trying to save the world, and that's the honest to God truth. My passion is economic development, and so I'm trying to use every resource that I have, and all the time that I have outside of representing my clients to build almost like a cradle to grave solution. And I'm not doing this alone. I know nobody can do it alone. So I have partners. I have a co-founder. I have a team that's helping me out with Equal Liberty. I have a team that's helping me out with Diversity Fund Houston. So Diversity Fund Houston, I'll start there, is something, again, I had no idea I would ever get in venture capital. And what venture capital is, it's an alternative way to finance your startup. Typically, it's a high growth startup or a technology startup that can scale. And so instead of going to a
Mm-hmm.
bank and getting a loan and using some kind of collateral to get that loan, you're going to investors. And so we have a fund called it's called the Grit Fund, and we got that name based on the resiliency shown by the people we want to serve and invest in. When I've been at the Urban League over 10 years, I've seen a lot of people that have made so many sacrifices just to come down to 1301 Texas Avenue and listen to a speaker or work on their assignment. I mean, we're talking about people who are single mothers. We're talking about dads who are just transitioning from the prison system. We're talking about people who have no vehicle, people barely even being able to pay their bills, but they have a dream. And I personally try to do everything I can. I know the Urban League does a amazing job of giving them everything they need through those resources that are being passed through there. But still, yet and still, we see a lot of people's dreams die, and a lot of it stops because they don't have the capital, because nobody trusts them as a steward because they don't have perfect credit, or because they didn't come from a certain family, or
Mm.
they didn't go to a certain school. And that's the way it's been for quite some time, and it still is. And although we've made some improvements in our market and in the financial industry. And so what I saw maybe around 2016, actually started with Kylie Summers in his class. And Kylie's the founder of SpendDebt, him and his wife, and they had to travel all across the country, uproot their family to get seed capital. And this
Mm,
is money before you start generating positive revenues, or you're really considered for institutional round funding from a major venture capital or financial institution. And with that, it kind of disheartened me. It's like you're going through all this and you're reading stories about other people from other communities being able to acquire deals. And then we started seeing like-minded businesses who serve a similar customer where they're getting funding and they're already in the market, and then people who look like you and I are doing the same amount of work,
mm-hmm,
putting the same amount of time and pitching their business, going through these incubators and going through these accelerators and getting mentor on top of mentor on top of mentor, but they're still not getting any capital. And so let's do something about it.
mm,
And so we started talking with Judson and Eric, and then we started talking with some other leaders who sit on our advisory board, and we said, you know what, we're going to raise a fund. And the mayor got behind us. We have a partnership with Prairie View A&M and some other people that
mm-hmm.
we can't really speak about just yet. But they say we'll help you out
Yeah.
because we know the importance of the work you're doing. Because if you guys will continue to serve the community, and let's say we find that person that does have the burning desire and they get the capital, well, they can be going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. And we know that there's enough money out there to fund these businesses, but we need somebody to help us identify those companies and get them some early seed capital. So what we do is we give friends and family around. I don't know about you. Although my
Mm.
dad and my stepmom they do some great work, they can't just write me a check
Yeah.
for
No. Yeah. Oh
50.
no. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't make that kind of money. So they're good stewards, but they're
Yeah.
not wealthy
Yeah.
like that. And so that's the problem in most people who look like us. They don't have somebody they can call up and get that kind of money. And so we're doing that. We're going to make those investments for
Yeah.
those high growth founders for both black and brown, and we're going to be intentional about going there and seeking out those people who are going through your Baker Ripley's and your Urban League programs and your Sure programs and your HCC programs, and we're
Mm,
going to say, you know what, look, we see you working hard. We see that you have a
mm,
viable
mm,
product.
mm.
We're going to get you the tools, the resources, and the capital so that you at least have an opportunity. Because that's all it's about, just opportunity. We can't guarantee no wins, but we know that if you give 100 people an opportunity, at least one of them are going to make it out. And that does wonders for the Houston community. It does wonders for the black and brown community because now you have job creation. And then you have inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is the inspirational incubator because if I see
That's
one
right.
person from my community make it, well, now that encourages me to actually go down that same path. And that's what Diversity Fund Houston's about. And I'm hoping that we have some wins this year. We're going to start deploying capital as the goal by
Mm-hmm.
hopefully Q3, and we're going to continue to fundraise throughout the year, and we'll go from there. And so that's
Wow.
one. So that's venture capital. I'll stop there to see if you have any
Mm-hmm.
questions about venture capital and technology companies and how they differ maybe from your small business or traditional companies.
Wow. I don't know about you guys, but I can sit here all day listening to Philip talk. Woo, this is good stuff. And I want to back up a little bit and touch bases on a few things that Philip mentioned. He said there are just some people he can't mention yet. So I do want to share a shout. I would like to send a shout out to the people who are behind the scenes working, the people who don't always show face in their quiet storms, because I know a few of those people.
Yep.
And they work quietly, but they work diligently. And although they're practical, they're also literally our modern day superheroes who show up and show out when we make those phone calls or when we send those text messages to get some things that we need, to get that information, the knowledge, the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, because we cannot move through this world alone. We have to lean on one another to get to where it is we're trying to go. And so not everyone has their face out in the forefront, but we appreciate those who are behind the scenes. And I wanted to be clear with the Diversity Fund Houston and the venture capital. When people are receiving some of the funds, is it a situation where we have like some angel donors, or where people are buying a certain percentage of individuals' companies? Does it look like that from any perspective? Is it a situation where some people, they build up their company and let's say they're ready to sell out? I think it was my photographer who shared some information on Facebook where we learned there are a lot of companies that started out as African American hair care products and they are no longer ran by African Americans. However, the information that is being produced gives the appearance that those companies are, in fact, ran by African Americans. And so those individuals decided to sell their businesses. So I was just wondering, when people are receiving some money from investors, do you all work with them from the perspective where they'll have the opportunity to eventually scale and sell their business? Are the investors looking to own a percentage of their company? Like, what does some of that look like? What are some different angles
No,
or,
no,
or prerequisites?
very good question. And I'm glad you're asking this question before we talk about equal liberty. And so with diversity, with venture capital, that's essentially what you're doing. You're using equity instead of debt at the very beginning to grow your business. Right. And so when you have a small business that may be a lifestyle business where it's ran and operated by one person, like my law firm is a small business, it's a lifestyle business. I may be able to take debt out on the business to finance my operations, but I couldn't. It'd be very rare for me to give up equity because it just wouldn't be that valuable because
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have the ability to scale, like you said, outside of my time and maybe a few others if I build some systems. But with a technology or high growth companies like a Shea Moist Butter, say it was a Shea Moisture, they create products, and so with the right investments and infrastructure, they have the ability to scale. And so when we're working with the Diversity Fund Houston, we're looking at those type of businesses, whether it's a consumer based product or um, it can be a financial technology product. It could be a travel industry product. It could be a healthcare, and there's a few other industries in which we were looking at. But essentially, we're looking at somebody who's starting a business that needs investment to prove out a concept, and that concept is hopefully something that's a viable a product that can scale out, like you said, and provide a certain return. So instead of having an interest rate tied to it with like a debt instrument, you have equity that you would give in
Mm,
exchange for that capital. So when we raise our fund, there's limited partners, and whether it's a financial institution or a high net worth individual or a foundation or another organization, somebody they all invest money to come up with the entire amount of money that the fund's worth. And then it's our job to find the investors by through our due diligence process. To find the founders and the organizations to invest that money in. In exchange, yes, there is some equity that you would give up like 5 to 8% at the early stages, maybe less, maybe more, depending on the deal, but just average. And then you're promising those investors a certain return, so like 3x to maybe 5x at best over time. But your goal is to continue to use that money to build out more infrastructure, to start creating monthly revenue so that you're prepared for a larger investment, whether it be from a financial institution or another venture capital. And these are basically for businesses who want to become multimillionaires or billionaires. And you have to start
mm-hmm,
somewhere, and it may take 5 years, it may take 7 years. That's on average, it takes about 7 years.
mm-hmm,
10 years would be the longest that it should take. But your goal is to get what they call the IPO, where you do your initial public offering, and then at that point in time, you're selling your stocks to the public. Prior to that initial public offering, what we call an IPO, you're doing it. You're basically not a public. You're a non-public company, and so there are rules out there through the Security Exchange Commission that govern how you can sell your shares prior to them being, regulated by the stock market. And it's a good way to raise capital. It's a good way to grow your business so that you can become the CEO and have your own board and create value for the company. And then you
mm-hmm,
keep reinvesting, you create jobs, and then hopefully you either get acquired or you go IPO. So those are two things for your listeners who are interested in going that route. That's usually the goal when you start a high growth or technology business. You want to say in your mind, who would want to acquire me? What type of industry, what type of companies would find my company attractive so that they'll in 3 to 5 years say, you know what,
mm-hmm,
you're making enough money, you have enough market cap or market space, we're going to buy your company from you. And so going back to your
mm-hmm,
colleague or somebody you were networking with, they said, okay, this organization used to be owned by African American man or woman or predominantly owned by African Americans. Well, that's true. Well, so there are some ways to make deals where you get acquired and it still may be ran by that person where if they might have a royalty deal or they may have been kept on as the CEO or the CFO or some kind of in some kind of official leadership capacity. That happens all the time where it's still ran by that person,
Mhm.
but a larger corporation or some other investors bought it. But that's a good thing. Like it doesn't mean you
Yeah.
don't. You can if that's a good product, keep buying it. If you want to buy a new product, go. But you want to see people to look like you and I get acquired or go public because that means they now have created generational wealth. They now can go on and go advise other people to show them how to make millions of dollars. They can start sitting on boards, or they can start a new company where they create more jobs. The more of us that are in those positions, the better. And so that's what Diversity Fund Houston is all about. Is like we want to either a create more people like us that have the ability to write the check, or b put more checks on the people that look like us so they can create more jobs. And that's the way you fix this economic disparities and social injustice that we have. And so that's what
Mm.
Diversity Fund Houston is doing. We're
Wow.
doing it from the ground up.
Wow, I tell you, oh, this is just amazing because it's important for people to hear from someone who understands the formula. When you look at everything from stocks to, building your nonprofit, your business, it's all about a formula. And one of the things that I was talking to with my mentor, Dr. Smith, you want, when you're starting off on that left side of the equation, you have your, and in the left quadrant top, you have your job. And then under that, you have your small business owner. And sometimes people don't necessarily realize when they have a small business that you're still on that left side of the quadrant, that the worker, the person who has a job is. And so if you aren't product based, a lot of your services, if you're a consultant like myself, you're going to have to look to yourself to produce a lot more than you may have anticipated. And so when you're moving to the right side of that quadrant and you have your business based module where you have products and services that aren't always attached to you, then you can eventually move into that side of the quadrant where you are an investor. And I don't know about anybody else, but for myself, ultimately, my goal is just to watch my money move. I just want to see the money move, and I just want to be an investor, and, I have people who ask me questions that I'm not necessarily the best person, I would say, but you have answered a lot of the questions just from the knowledge that you have as it relates to Diversity Fund Houston, because I feel when you speak with someone who is knowledgeable in their area of expertise, it makes a difference. We are full with the capacity that you have poured into us. We are full today. We understand that Diversity Fund Houston is the place that you definitely want to connect with when it comes to venture capital and expanding your business, building generational wealth, ensuring that the disparities in the community are limited and ultimately just no longer something that we have to deal with as a city, as a nation, but it begins with us and how we embrace the resources that we have. So that was excellent. Now, let's talk about, okay, it says in 2019, you launched Equal Liberty Incorporated. Now, talk to us about this technology platform, and it's very critical for people who have kind of just been skating by and doing their day to day routines. You have to understand everything we do is attached to technology. And I think because of the COVID crisis, we have finally come to that conclusion. More than ever, we have to focus on technology. So, with your platform and with it teaching creators, how to use their talents and how to develop and grow business inside their communities, what does that look like? And we're just ready for you to share.
No, thank you, thank you. Good segue from Diversity Fund Houston to Equal Liberty. As you mentioned, launched it officially in 2019. Started working on this in I want to say maybe 2008. It was early on. I had this vision for it, and then I just gained inspiration by a philosopher. He was actually an economist and also an attorney by the name of Louis Kelso, and he had the principle of binary economics, which in terms of trying to figure out a way how communities can increase their production or at least balance their production with consumption by way of trading their resources in the community. One of the things he's well known for is creating the employee stock ownership plan, or helping to introduce that into Congress, and which we see now, which is based on just how do you get employees to take more ownership of the companies they work for. May not be as prevalent now because of entrepreneurship and the shift and just making sure that everybody becomes an independent contractor or owner, but that's where equal liberty comes in. Going back to fighting for parity and fairness in our community, I wanted to see how we can increase the density of ownership in the Black community, and really BIPOC, the Black,
mm,
Indigenous, and people of color, and even just after that, how do you solve poverty, especially in America when everything's based on capitalism, and so you have to have a resource that you can
mhm,
trade in the marketplace, and we all have it. And so I always like to start off my story in Ailey because I remember so many of my talented friends, whether they're artists or they were barbers or they had culinary skills and just things that if they learned how to own that skill set and market it and trade it in the marketplace, whether or not they have another full time job or not, they own something and then they can increase their production and then they own it. And then by that way, they can own a home. Essentially, they can, after that, have other savings plans, and then you now have less poverty, and then you have more wealth generation. Equal liberty is born by way of saying, okay, let's teach these individuals. This is one step lower than the people who are a few steps lower than the people who may be at your small business development university or some of these other business incubators. And it's like we're really trying to invest in people by way of the community they represent. So Equal Liberty is an online community of makers and creators, which we all have this ability. And our goal is to create generational and community driven wealth by way of trying to invest in communal assets. The digital platform is based on local neighborhoods, so it'll be very hyper local, where we're going to be intentional about serving communities versus the entire city. As you and I know, in the work we
mhm.
do, there's no one size fits all in community development. It's just
Yeah.
not. I mean, you can live in one area of Houston. I mean, shoot, our weather's not even. There's no parity in our weather. You could be on one side of Houston and be raining, and the other side is sunny, and that's actually
Yes.
how it looks economically as well. And so it's a geolocation platform where we're going to bring in mentors, we're going to bring in resources, and ultimately we're going to gamify the wealth building process. I'm really excited about it. There's a partnership
Ooh.
going on with the Urban League where we're going to actually give people the tools and resources. We're not trying to give them a curriculum or anything of that, but we want them to meet the Leonas, and we want them to meet the banker. We want them to meet the lawyers, and we want them to meet the other mentors, and really want them to do something that's going to solve their own problem. It's kind of like what President Obama said while he was in office, like, we're the ones we've been waiting on. And
Mhm,
that's truly how it
mm,
used to be a long time ago. It's like you had everything you needed in your community. It's still the same exists. It's just that people forget about the people in their community. And so let's use technology to actually bridge that gap and actually
mhm,
bring in
mhm.
resources. And so, yeah, man, I'm excited. And I'll tell you how that process got started. I'm open for questions, but you you brought the economic quadrant, and for those who may not be familiar with the economic quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki really coined it or made it famous with one of his books. I believe it was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he talked about, okay, one, there's the employee, then two, there's the entrepreneur, the entrepreneur, small business owner, then there's the self-employed, and then there's the investor. And then
Mhm,
for equal liberty, recognize that there's also the unemployed and the underemployed. And so I want to take
mm,
all that in consideration and say, okay, how do you make sure people understand where they fit in that quadrant? The unemployed and underemployed should know, but maybe they don't know. And maybe they don't know that if you
mm.
are transitioning out of the prison system, or if you have extremely harsh, traumatic experiences with your financial credit, that you may need to start considering that you need to own a business. And I've seen a lot of ex cons or ex felons actually go out there and do very well for themselves when they put their
Come
mind
on
to it
now.
and gotten the resources. And so, what if we can
Mhm.
create a system so that these young people or older people or just people in transition now have a place to go so that they're not pushed out the economy? But then, once you get on that quadrant, like you said, I mean, people have to know where they're at so they know how to build their business and make sure they truly own it and they can take advantage of opportunities. One of the biggest tragedies of this past year dealing with COVID and the pandemic is that the government pretty much started ushering cash. I mean, they just started, they said, you know what, we know people
Mm,
are hurting. The federal government said, here's the resources, Small Business Administration, do what you can. But the problem was a lot of people who
mm,
thought they were small business owners didn't understand they were really just self employed, right? Or
mm,
and that was by way of not really fully understanding that maybe you should have got a specific legal entity. Maybe you should have registered your business at the state level. Maybe you should have started paying yourself a salary and
mm.
have a budget. Maybe you should have had a business bank account that was separate from your personal bank account. I mean, these are all the things that you get through
Yeah.
experiential learning,
Mm-hmm.
and so you can't it's like you have to give people an opportunity to be stewards and also get the information in real time and then put it into practice. And I think technology, in fact, I believe technology will allow us to do that. And that's what we're doing. So if you're the employee and you're just, you're disgruntled, you're dissatisfied with your job because you're not making enough money to provide for your family, well, now you have the technology so that you don't have to miss work to actually start creating wealth. We can do that for you, but
Mm,
we're trying to push you to be in a small business. If you want to be a small business owner, you now have technology and innovation at the palm of your hands, where you now can learn that okay, I need to get a S corp or LLC or even a C corp, and then I need to make sure I'm registered. I need to make sure I have insurance, and I need to make sure I have a budget and I have a business
mm,
banker and all these other key tools and resources and personnel that you need to grow your business model. And if you're self-employed, even though you're independent contractor, you still have to protect yourself so that you can get insurance and that you protect yourself from liability and that you can qualify for certain financial resources. And then ultimately, we're
that's
going to
right.
provide a way for investors in the community who are looking for ways to build their community using the resources. And we can name a lot of people that we know who've had capital in our community, but just didn't know what to do with it. In fact, one of the biggest benefactors, and we don't
Mm,
want to take money from, is the church, the black church. So we know we have the
mm.
money.
Come on now.
And so it's like we can reverse engineer our spending problem, and then also given
Mm,
another outlet or another bucket for us to invest in our community so that we can create more people who have the ability to own and generate communal and generational wealth. And so we're starting that now. And I was fortunate to get some investment from somebody who believed in the idea. We'll still be raising money, but because we have good partnerships and relationships and we have the technology built, we're going to start. And I'll certainly reach
yes.
out to you because I want to make sure we have more people like us that who want to get involved either as as a mentor or in another capacity. They have the ability to do so in their respective community.
Oh, absolutely. You already know. I mean, Plans of Action Houston is here to help support whatever you need. And one of the things that, I'm broadening my canvas with is the communication component. I love empowering people with plans of actions. And so I made sure when everything occurred, which was going on, I said, what can I do? I have a family, I have a daughter, I have a son. What can I do to ensure that people get the resources that they need? I made sure to connect with the Urban League, post that information, get the information out to the people. I've had a few people say, thank you, Leona. We appreciate it. I had to make a few phone calls. I was a little taken back when I found out that we weren't getting, resources from the, a national level. And Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, she is truly our superhero here in Houston. She made sure that FEMA showed up and showed out to get these
Mm-hmm.
resources here in Houston. But people need to know that was not the case initially. Initially, because I called, because I had people calling me, I
Mm-hmm.
needed to know what is the process? What do people need to do? I needed to check and verify the information. And they said, well, follow up with your local government, your local, your city leaders. Think about it. Our city officials were impacted by the storm. They too have homes and houses that were, torn to shreds when it came to, their water heaters overrunning and not having electricity. So when I tell you, just to back up, because I just can go on and on a tangent, because I just get overwhelmed with
You better preach.
joy just thinking of, yes, I get overwhelmed with joy just thinking about people who get what they need. Because if you've ever been in a situation that you've needed anything and someone just reached out to you and provided and stood in that gap, it was just a blessing beyond words. And that's what you're doing. Philip, when I tell you, you have literally given people ideas with the information that you have given them this evening. And I'm not finished because I have a few more questions. Uh, you have literally given them ideas for business plans. You have literally given them a pathway in which they can take to get each and every resource. If you don't possess it specifically, you know which direction to point them to in order to get exactly what it is that they need. Just along with you talking about economics, and people, please realize that when you're dealing with economics, when you're dealing with building wealth, economics helps to inform us on decisions that we need to make currently and in the future. It influences everything around us from tax inflation and wealth, inequality, everything. It impacts industries, and it doesn't necessarily matter what that industry is, and this is why research is so important. It inspires business success. And it also gives us and helps us from an international perspective. So I am so grateful that we have Mr. Phillip Yates with us this evening to just help teach us, what it is that we need to know to thrive. And I want you to know it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but your burden will be lighter because you have people in this community like Phillip Yates, who is here to help support you, to help lighten that load. So, what more could we ask for? I'm just so excited. Now, I have to ask you, Phillip.
Mhm.
Recently, you became the commissioner for uh, Houston's fire department. I mean, that is commendable. Can you talk or touch bases on that at all, just a little, so that people can see how you're just flourishing across the board with just everything that you're doing? And it's all interconnected. It's all interconnected. It's all flowing and thriving like the body. Our body is just magnificent. We have several different systems, we have several different organs, but it's all one body. It's very, complicated to some degree for people who don't understand it. But if you've ever studied anatomy and physiology, it becomes more your mind becomes more at an ease because you begin to understand the functionality of the human body and how beautiful it is. And so when I see people in business operating that way in an organized fashion, where their practices are at a level of excellence, where they are efficient and effective, they can just it's just no end to what they can do. Definitely, I think of Philip as one of those people. So, can you touch basis on that particular role that I just recently found out about? I was just like, wow, look at you.
Well, I think we're all special, right? We all have a responsibility. And I think Muhammad Ali said it best, like that's our rent to the world of service. And I truly believe that. And
Mm,
I believe that in a number of ways where I feel like you have to have a purpose to operate. That's what keeps you motivated. And that's what the inspirational incubator is all about. You're finding people with purpose. And this is just my purpose. So it makes it easier for me to follow that. And I talked about my survivor's remorse, just coming out of the community that I was raised like, why me? Why didn't I end up in
mm,
jail? Why am I not in the grave? Why am I not on some on some pathway that may not lead to a positive ending. But I'm here in this space, and so I'm going to do everything I can with the time and opportunity that's been afforded to me by God and my community. And this is just another step for me. And I'll just say somebody tapped me on my shoulder and asked me if I'll be interested. They followed the work I'm doing and in the civic space. And this is just another civic opportunity to serve like you said, the fire department for the city of Houston, as well as the municipal employees of the city of Houston. So I don't take that.
yes,
I want to give a major shout out to our mayor, Sylvester Turner. He's been a fantastic leader for
yes,
us through pandemics, through natural disasters. He's been very responsive. And so he's been an inspiration for all of us. Despite whatever your politics may
yes.
be, one thing you can't argue is that he's shown up for all of Houston in our time of need. And so when you have a leader like that, and that person says yes, I want to nominate you, and you have no you have no choice but to say yeah, because he
Mm,
has way more responsibilities than I do. So if he can do it, I can just do my small part to
wow.
make sure that we maintain justice in that space in the Civic Service Commission. So, yeah, I'm happy to get started. I already had my first meeting where I was able to vote on some matters and hear some different issues, and I just plan on ruling the way I do everything else in my life, where you listen to the facts, you understand the law, and you maintain justice, and you want to make sure that it's fair and everybody gets the equal opportunity to voice their grievances and their issues, and then there will be an outcome. That's all I think anybody can ask for in this world. I'm just thankful and blessed that the city leaders thought enough of me to give me that opportunity to sit in that seat. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And it's going to be a continual learning process and a growth process in my role as a civic leader.
That's just awesome. And true to your point, although we had this disaster with the storm, and I've had to say to several people several times, if you are going to be in any city in the United States of America during a disaster, Houston, Texas will be the city of choice, because the resources flowing through the city as it relates to a business perspective and as it relates to human resource acumen is just outstanding. Our mayor has always been on the forefront. And shout out to the districts, and I'm gonna shout out a few districts. Don't charge it to my head or my heart, but Council Member Carlos Cisneros district did an amazing job answering those telephones. When I tell you the calls were rolling in, my God, that child, he was energetic. Christian took every call. He worked very diligently. He was fueled trying to get those people the information that they need. Council Member Tiffany Thomas, District F. She's just always on the front lines and behind the scenes. And actually, the Houston Area Urban League was at the one of the schools in A-Leaf and just providing resources right before the storm had hit. Y'all were giving out some stuff. It might have been around the holidays. Just amazing how everybody comes together. It's just amazing. The parents, how they're able to thrive and just support their children just a step further because of the Urban League. And then District D. When I tell you, consistently posting information about the community, sending me information in my inbox to get it out. And, just to all of the districts that are doing well. We had a little controversy in my district. I won't mention that particular controversy if people haven't, haven't heard about it, because this is the inspiration incubator. We strive to inspire. But, but what I will say is, to all the city council members who are making a difference in your district, we are grateful and we are thankful for your time and your efforts, because the city of Houston, I wouldn't want to be in any other city. When I started seeing those resources move, they were moving so quick. The school district were giving out surveys. What happened? What do you need? Do you have electricity? Do you have water? They were giving away water, they were giving away food, the Houston Food Bank, just everybody just coming together in a time of need to make sure that Houstonians and people within the city of Houston were not suffering outside of the capacity that they were able to fill. If they were able to fill those gaps were filled in spite of what was going on with some of those leaders, because they too were suffering, because you don't know what they had to deal with. So I am very grateful for the leadership in our wonderful city. I cannot wait, Philip, to see all the amazing things that you have coming your way. And I will definitely be in touch, and we'll get connected a little more. I'm just excited about everything, and I have a few more interviews to do, but I definitely will be reaching out again soon. And as we're closing, is there anything else that's on your heart or on your mind that you really felt you needed to share? I know your faith has played a tremendous part in who you are and what you do. You have such a beautiful family. Your children are just adorable. And I get a front row seat. They are just too adorable. And I know that they're going to be great in all that they do. You have a beautiful wife. And when you take in consideration everything that you're doing, it's definitely to the glory of God, because people are not consistently suffering unnecessarily, and they can look to people in this city to get the help and the resources that they need. But if there's anything left that you need to share, and let people know where they can find you, because I know for myself, prior to all of this happening, I was in talks with different people about getting some resources out, and I had to pivot myself, because when things changed, COVID left individuals in a situation not knowing, how to move their resources. They didn't know what was going to happen to the stock market. They didn't know, well, do I have $10,000 to donate to a nonprofit, or do I have $5,000 to give to a small business? People started to, clench their purses a little bit. So we understand
Absolutely.
that. We understand that,
Yes, yes.
So, if there's anything you have left that you like to close out, just let us know. Let them know where to find you.
No, in closing, I'll say, well, one, thank you for having me. This has been truly an inspiration. I love the story about your son being involved in just community work. I mean, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, and so that's just a testament to legacy and the work you're doing, as well as this inspirational incubator. I'll tell people I gave two books earlier. Read those books if you get a chance: The Power of Money and The Color of
Mm-hmm.
Law. And then I'll say the Book of James. I mean, that's you talked about my faith. A lot of my faith comes in those short, that's the shortest chapter probably in the Bible, if not as one of them. I think there's a few others that are
Yeah.
shorter, but it really speaks to the way we should operate as human beings, and that's really sums me up. I'll tell you a quote, and then I'll tell you how they reach me that I like to live by. Is one, it says, "If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together." An African proverb. And that's what this is all about. Like you talked about the work of the city
Mm-hmm.
council and the mayor, but it really speaks to the work that people like you are doing and so many others in this city. And I'm just thankful to be a part of now the legacy of the Inspirational Incubator. If you want to reach me, I'll tell you, reach me because maybe if you're looking for resources or you want to be connected in some shape, form, or fashion, I'm easy to find. You can find me on LinkedIn under Phillip Yates. And then also on Instagram, either in my law practice, Yates Law Office, or you can reach me directly or in my individual capacity at PJY underscore equal liberty. Look forward to sharing a lot of information about equal liberty. If you're starting a business, I'll be remiss if I don't give this information out about the Urban League. We have classes every Wednesday night online. Now, at some point in the future, we'll go back to in-person activities, but there will always be a virtual presence. If you're starting a business and just looking for a community to grow with, you can go to www.haul.org. That's www.hall.org. That's the Houston Area Urban League's website, and register for the Small Business Development University. Love to meet you on that platform. But other than that, I love to continue to work with you, love to continue to follow your podcast, and I love to meet all your listeners in one shape, form, or fashion. And just thank you for having me. This has been a great experience. So thank you.